All right, next we're going to talk about what causes stress. So psychosocial stressors, when we hear that term, it's factors in our social and physical environments that cause us to experience stress. So big one is adjusting to change. And that's going to be a really big issue for you guys after high school. So when you get to that campus or wherever you're going, that new job, you're going to be adjusting to change. And it's going to be really tricky. You're going to have all these positive things that you think are going to happen, and maybe some of them aren't going to happen. And it's going to be very hard. So adjusting to change is going to be a major stressor and already is, but we're going to have to deal with that coming up. Hassles, just that daily grind. So the toll of just those little things that always bug you, believe it or not, they do wear on you. The toll of relationships, could be romantic relationships, it could be friendships, family, coworkers. There just could be that source of struggle that you have with certain people. Academic and financial pressures. College is, you've heard the term poor college kid. Your parents are there to help you, but you are also expected to kind of pick up some of the bills, so to speak. So there's going to be a lot more financial pressure on you. You may be taking out loans. You may be having your own car payment for the first time. So all of these things are going to be coming at you. Frustrations and conflict. Wherever you are in life, you can't escape frustrations and conflict. So this could be demands that you have to meet, whether maybe it's your family, maybe it's your values. You're trying to manage your grades with working so that you can have money. So you're going to end up feeling really kind of conflicted. Overload is another issue. It's just feeling very overextended, like you don't have enough hours in the day, and that can lead to burnout, which is just total mental, physical exhaustion, and you just find yourself doing nothing. You may binge on Netflix for a day because you just can't do anything. Stressful environments. There are certain environments that do tend to lend themselves to stress. Sorry for my nursing majors, but that's going to be one of them. So working in a stressful environment, like an emergency room, that would be pretty tricky as compared to maybe working, at a regular doctor's office. And then also environments where you feel bias and discrimination. So it could be because of your religious affiliation, your gender, sexual orientation. But if you're feeling on a constant basis that you are in that environment, that can be very, very stressful. And the book even talks about background stressors, like if you live somewhere where there's a lot of noise or water and air quality issues. There's a lot of allergy aggravating type of issues where you might have pollen and dust. All of those things can lead to more stress. So now we're going to look at internal stressors. Internal stressors are what's going on inside of us and how we can actually stress our own selves out. So the first is appraisal. This is the interpretation and evaluation of information that is coming in to our brain. And it's basically how we're perceiving the event. And this is going to help us recognize and evaluate stress based on past experiences and our emotions about it. And what we have found is, guess what? How we perceive it has a lot to do with these two things we've already talked about, and you already have defined them. But just in case you don't know them yet or the difference between them, self-esteem and self-efficacy. So how you feel about yourself. So when we have someone with very low self-esteem and high stress, this is a really bad situation, and research has found can actually lead to this suicide ideation where they desire to die or have thoughts about suicide. So they don't feel that they're able to get through these stress events. Self-efficacy is the belief or the confidence that we can do the task, that we can perform, that we can rise to the challenge. And we see research showing high self-efficacy predicts that we are going to have healthy behaviors in college students and that they're going to be able to cope and overcome academic pressures. In fact, it is right now considered the most important personality trait to influence all of our mental and physical stress responses. So self-efficacy is the key. The good news is if you have low self-esteem and you have low self-efficacy, you can fix it. You can work on it. But changing your personality, that's a little bit different. So The book talks about 4 main personality types, and no one is wholly one personality type. And this is just one look at personalities. There's a lot of different type of personality tests out there, but type A and type B, basically they're polar ends. So type A is your hard-driven, competitive, they're very rigid, stuck to a schedule, perfectionists. Research back in the 70s showed that there was a much higher chance for heart disease. Further research has shown that really those at the highest risk had hostility. So they were type A, but they were very angry, they were very distrustful, they were very cynical. And so they now are saying that possibly if you are not hostile at the core, that as a type A, you might be just fine. Type B is more your relaxed, non-competitive, laid back, very tolerant of others, not really stuck to the schedule type of person. None of us is, again, really wholly type A or type B. But we also have type C and D. And again, we're not wholly one of these either. We may be a little bit of a mix of all of these things. But type C are our more stoic individuals. They tend to deny their feelings. They're really kind of just conforming, not very assertive. They even may come off kind of helpless at times or even hopeless. They are more susceptible to autoimmune disorders, multiple sclerosis, and cancers. Type D are our doom and gloomers. D for doom, that's how I remember it. They are always just worrying, just excessively. It's very negative worry. They're very irritable, and they may be socially inhibited. And now this is the group that we're going, okay, they have 8 times a higher chance to die of a heart attack or sudden death. So are we kind of stuck with our internal stressors? Like if we have a lower self-efficacy, if we have a type A personality, are we stuck? No, we're not. They're not inescapable. We can work through how we perceive stress and how we internally kind of stress ourselves out. One way is psychological hardiness, and this is staying in control, being committed, and embracing the challenge. So research has shown that this will negate some of the self-imposed stress or some of these internal stressors. This concept now has evolved. They call it psychological resilience, which is just this overall picture of our capacity to maintain or even regain our psychological health when we are facing just mounting stress. And the last term that the book talks about kind of getting through these stressors is the shift and persist theory, which is, if you think about, maybe you've seen a movie or read a story about someone who maybe as a young person grew up in poverty in a really urban area, really hard times, and they rose above. So that's what shift and persist. They have found that certain, particularly youth, with the help of positive role models, when they're in the presence of extreme and persistent adversity, they're able to kind of reframe how they are appraising or taking in the current stressors and come out of it with a positive experience and kind of learn from it and really, again, going back to the hardiness, embrace the challenge and work through it. Common term for some of this may be the term grit. I think you've heard of that. There's some TED Talks about this. What is grit and this resiliency? So when you hear that, you can kind of put this with it. So college is coming up. How are we going to manage stress in college? First is you want to practice mental work to reduce stress. So assess the stressors and solve it. The book talks about stress inoculation, meaning something's coming up that's stressful, try to reduce it by practicing the situation. So if you have to give a speech in class, give the speech a few times, a few days before. Change the way you think. Instead of negative looping, positive. So it's called cognitive restructuring, and that's one of your vocab terms. And it's really just changing the way that you talk to yourself. Develop a support network. Find supportive people and invest in those people, meaning you got to give back to them also. We did a whole section on spiritual health, so I'm not going to go crazy talking about this, but you really want to cultivate your spiritual side while you're in college. Don't leave church at home. Find time to meditate or pray. Serve others. Volunteer. You want to manage your emotional responses. The book has an excellent section here. I urge you, if you have any type of rage, go read the book on this section. It talks about the 7 reasons why we normally feel anger and takes you through ways to deal with that. Learn to laugh and be joyful. And yes, have a good cry every once in a while, just not like every single day. You want to take physical action, get enough sleep, get exercise, eat healthy, and avoid eating things that are going to mimic stress, so stimulants. The book talks about sympathomimetics, which is a really big term for substances that would induce a stress response, like caffeine would increase your heart rate. You need to manage your time. In fact, one of the vocab words is procrastinate. So don't put off what needs to be done, just get it done. And consider downshifting, which is underlined right there, basically means simplify your life. Take a step back. What can you cut out that is not helping you meet your end goal? Learn to say no and mean it. And the book gives excellent advice about time management. So to elaborate a little bit more, when you get to college, these are going to be so important because you're going to have so much work to do. So do one thing at a time. Clean off your desk, have a good study space, or find a place that you can go that you enjoy to go to get your work done. Prioritize your tasks. I love to-do lists. Autumn uses those. My husband also is a big to-do lister. Agendas, whatever you need to use that's going to help you know, hey, I got to get this done. Find, again, that place that you really like to work where you can get work done uninterrupted. Reward yourself for work completed. And work when you're at your best. If you're a night person, work more at night. If you're a morning person, get up early and get some of it done in the morning. Break the tasks up into small pieces. Sometimes sitting for hours and hours on end is actually wasting time because you do need a break to kind of recharge. And just remember that time is precious.